Thank you for joining us to commemorate Hispanic Heritage Month and discuss how stablecoins will drive Main Street growth in the crypto economy. As some of you may know, Blockchain Association is celebrating 2 years of advocacy in Washington to advance smart regulatory policies to foster innovation and economic growth here at home. We're thrilled to kick off our conversation today with a fireside chat with Congressman Darren Soto and World Economic Forum's Sheila Warren to discuss the inroads we've made and projections for the crypto economy. Stay tuned for a panel discussion following that conversation featuring representatives of Circle and Maker Foundation, which will be moderated by Cleve Mesidor, who leads the National Policy Network of Women in Color in Blockchain. We are honored to be joined now by Congressman Soto, who is in leadership of the Congressional Hispanic Caucus and co-chairs the Congressional Blockchain Caucus. Welcome, Congressman. And we're also joined by Sheila Warren, who is the head of blockchain and digital currency for the World Economic Forum. She also leads the Center for the Fourth Industrial Revolution. She began her career as a Wall Street attorney before turning to philanthropy and nonprofit tech over a decade ago, and has represented banks, philanthropists, and progressive nonprofits. So welcome to you both, Congressman Soto and Sheila. Why don't we just dive right in and start with a question for you, Congressman Soto. Congratulations. I know that the Congressional Hispanic Caucus Institute, which supports the work of the Congressional Hispanic Caucus, had a very successful conference a couple of weeks ago. And so I think what would maybe be useful to start off this conversation is if you could tell us a little bit about Hispanic Heritage Month and why it's important to be discussing blockchain during throughout the month, as well as specifically the panel that you hosted at the CHCI forum earlier this fall.
Sure. So as many of us know, we have Hispanic Heritage Month from September 15th through October 15th. It's a chance to be able to highlight the culture, the history, contributions of Hispanic Americans to the United States. We have a lot of events through the Congressional Hispanic Caucus to help commemorate that, as well as through the CHCI, which is our nonprofit arm that helps raise money to give interns an opportunity to intern on the Hill and get a stipend. We see with so many poor communities of color generally, having that first seed money to get to go to sea can be critical. When you talk to most people who work on the Hill, many folks started out as interns and worked their way up. And so we appreciate that. And when you look at the intersection with blockchain, if we're talking about the greater blockchain technology in general, of it being a fixed ledger, we've seen the use of that in combination with AI help us with combating COVID, with supercomputers utilizing in part data secured by blockchain to determine some of the antiviral drugs we're using right now, like remdesivir. And we also see it in the cryptocurrency form, how critical it can be in the Hispanic community. For instance, two specific types of transactions. You have a lot of small businesses in the district and throughout the United States that are Hispanic owned that provide services, for instance. And they want to provide them throughout the world. But when you're having to exchange currencies, that makes a lot of those service transactions competitive. But if you could via cryptocurrency, it limits the amount of cost, the amount of friction in those transactions. And to a certain extent, you could do that with goods as well. But if someone wants to provide services, designer services, or services in a professional manner to around the world, they could do it from a small business in my district. And then the other issue is remittances. You have a lot of folks who live in Florida who have family in other areas of the world, and they work, they make their money in Florida, and then they remit it back to their home countries. And that, of course, can be done cheaply via cryptocurrency. So those are just two examples. We'll go through more throughout the course of this conversation, directly relate to issues that are important to the community in areas where cryptocurrency will do a great job of expanding our economy and our resources.
Great, thank you, Congressman. Sheila, why don't we turn to you for a second? I looked this morning and I think the total market cap for cryptocurrencies is hovering around $340 billion right now. Stablecoins, in particular of that, have reached the $20 billion threshold, which we will be getting into more detail on what stablecoins are in the next conversation. And I know that the World Economic Forum, where you work, has predicted that blockchain could account for as much as 10% of global GDP by 2025, which seems like a huge number to me. Can you tell us why there is so much optimism for growth in this space?
Sure, Kristin. And I think the way you phrase the question is kind of predicated on the separation of discussion of the technology and discussion of the applications, which in some circles is now considered passé, but we'll go with that, because I think there are applications of technology that are outside token models and outside currency models as well. I'll note, however, I think that we have yet to, it's just tip of the iceberg in terms of the potential of this technology and what it can do. And there are some technical blockers and policy blockers that I think have prevented us from reaching wide-scale adoption to a degree that we think is possible. Some of those things, as examples, are digital identity. Like when we achieve the ability for, whether it's self-sovereign or otherwise, but digital identity schemes to be much more prevalent and standardized to some degree, although I don't think standards are really the necessary way to push. We're going to see a lot of applications that are currently easy to imagine, but hard to execute. I think in addition, there are some policy considerations. So interoperability comes up a lot in this space, as to why we haven't seen the explosion that we think is going to come at some point in the future. And it's not so much that that's technically hard, because we've kind of solved that in some ways and we're getting there very, very quickly. It's that there are policy considerations around some of that. Like, how do you actually move between on-chain and off-chain systems, and what you need to think about in terms of dispute resolution, liability, other kinds of considerations that are really complicated in their own right. So I think as the world moves toward an understanding of what decentralized technologies can actually do and what they mean, we'll stop talking about blockchain as much. That will become a more invisible layer in a tech stack that facilitates certain kinds of interactions that may be just part of a broader technology solution orientation. So I think that's one thing that will happen. But I also think that some of these other more policy-oriented ideas or concepts will become more baked into our business models and the way that we really orient around decentralization and its potential. And I think that's when we'll see more uptake here. But also, quite frankly, I think that there are legacy systems that are working pretty well for the problems they were intended to solve. And so my view very strongly is that the tech should always follow the problem. And as we start to focus on problems for which a blockchain can provide a new, innovative, perhaps cheaper, more efficient solution, I think we'll see more and more uptake. So as legacy systems move towards obsolescence, I think we're going to see more interest in this from sectors that have as yet been paying attention but haven't really moved into adoption fully.
Well, I think that's a good segue back to you, Congressman Soto. You are one of the co-chairs of the Congressional Blockchain Caucus and have been heavily involved in various legislative proposals that sort of aim to get some clarity around different policies that impact blockchains and cryptocurrencies. And just a couple of weeks ago, two of your bills, the Digital Taxonomy Act and the Blockchain Innovation Act, passed out of the House Energy and Commerce Committee and moved forward, which is fantastic and great to see some progress there. I know you were also the leading Democratic co-sponsor on both the Securities Clarity Act and the Digital Commodity Exchange Act, which was introduced in late September. I know from our perspective, we're very excited about all of these bills, and we think that these efforts will help clarify some of these outstanding issues related to securities laws and commodities regulations, et cetera. And it's great to see some progress. We still obviously have a long way to go, and we have an election coming up and a new Congress several months away. Can you kind of maybe give us a little bit of a roadmap of what might happen out of the gate next Congress? And do you think that we can actually get some of these bills beyond the introduction and committee phase and signed into law?
So the good news is the two first bills that you mentioned, both the Taxonomy and Innovation Acts, have passed out of the House already. We passed out of committee and they passed out of the House. We're getting a lot of interest from senators, and courage is an ever present after an election in a lame duck session. So I wouldn't be surprised if those two bills actually pass into law before the end of this term. They are biased, but the first of their kind to actually pass out, cryptocurrency-related bills that pass out of the House, and would provide both Commerce and FTC would produce reports to us on how to protect consumers from fraud, on how to boost innovation, and really get us in a better procedural posture when we actually do the real work, which is creating a regulatory regime where we define the various digital assets, whether because multiple different ones and don't apply to it. You know, you look at a digital asset like cryptocurrency, it could be a commodity, it could be a future, it could be a security, it could be a currency. And so we're going to have to do a whole new chapter for this. And that's where we attempted at first to do that with the Digital Taxonomy Act and the Token Taxonomy, pieces of which were the latest bill that passed, and other aspects that are attempted by both myself, Emmer, Kana, and some others in a bipartisan fashion. But the whole idea is to establish the definitions and the jurisdiction between the FTC, the CFTC, to a certain extent the Comptroller of Currency, and then the SEC for the small amount of them that end up being more securities-based. And some basic rules of the road for anti-fraud and innovation. And then we kind of want to step back a little because I view this as a time period right around the early to mid 90s when internet startups were just coming on to the scene, and we wanted to have basic rules of the road, but we want to over-regulate or legislate. So I expect there to be this first round where we get the agencies to comment through the bills that were just passed out, and then the second round look for 2021 to 2022 that potentially then get into law. And of course, the biggest task we have in addition to agency input is to get members of Congress educated about cryptocurrency. I know that is the biggest challenge. It's not necessarily a partisan issue or even something that the elections are really driving what we're doing. And in this case, not really at all. It's more about an education process. And I did want to comment on the last question. You brought up stablecoins, and I think I am interested to talk a little bit more about those and think that there's a big future in those as well as in both more traditional cryptocurrency as well, because I think you're going to see folks who are investors, who are more savvy, who are going to want alternatives from dollar-based and EU-based cryptocurrency. Then I think you have folks who are more apprehensive. They're not going to be as researching it. They just want a stable currency they could utilize and not give it another thought about it. We've seen other nations even utilize the dollar, like Palau, which used to be part of the United States, and other smaller nations peg it to the dollar or the EU. So I think for long-term, getting folks who are not going to spend every day researching the values and the investment aspects of it, having a stable coin option is going to be a big win for folks who are just looking to use it purely as a currency without really an investment aspect to it.
Yeah, no, I think there's huge utility in having a stable cryptocurrency where the value doesn't fluctuate. Sheila, maybe we'll go back to you for a second. I know that you've had worked with various banks throughout your career, and the congressman before mentioned the Office of the Comptroller of the Currency, the OCC, which, I think a year ago, if anyone had mentioned the OCC to me, and my job is to lobby government agencies, I'd be like, that doesn't matter. But we now have a new acting comptroller over there who has a lot of interest in this space and believes that, cryptocurrencies, including stablecoins, could be part of kind of our mainstream banking services in the future. And, recently issued an interpretive letter stating that national banks can hold the deposits of stablecoins that are backed kind of one-to-one on a fiat currency. Can you give us any thoughts about this and kind of what it means,
Sure.
maybe for stablecoins, but maybe also cryptocurrencies in general?
Yeah, sure. Well, first of all, I'll say it kind of demonstrates, I think, what can happen when you have somebody who's deeply knowledgeable about a topic that basically takes over, the head of an agency, and the positives for that of having someone who just understands the nuance of some of these things. And so, I don't think there's any question that this was positive news. It was received very well by really everyone in the space, because it really does mark, there's been some interesting state level activity, but it's really, I think, the first time there's been federal level clarity on some of these things in a very positive development. I think it's interesting what it covers and what it explicitly does not cover. So certainly it's starting with what I think we would all define as somewhat the lower hanging fruit, right? So it really focuses on one-to-one backed, it focuses on single fiat currency denomination. It doesn't really address specifically a basket model where you had a number of different currencies that comprised a basket. So that's out of scope for it. There are verification that's specified. You have hosting requirements around the reserve, like how it's held, things like that. So it really does provide quite a lot of clarity around what to do in order to ensure that you are creating this reserve in a way that a national bank, what they can do, a national bank. And this is going to, I think, really move the space forward. I think it's also interesting to note that the majority of the stablecoin market, looking at it by market cap, is actually covered by this, because that is actually the way. There's composite tokens proposed, and there are single fiat backed tokens, but also things that are backed by crypto asset deposits are not covered as well. So it's certainly quite, it's very forward thinking, it's very exciting, but it is also, I think, for the reality of the space, it is to some extent the more conservative low hanging fruit that is really covered here. And so I think it represents a very positive step in the right direction, and moving us to a place where we can start having more of the conversations about these topics. And that is what I think is most exciting about this, is the ability it gives us to do that. Now, I would be remiss if I didn't note that the letter, also really does say well, not literally, but it talks about obligations under the Bank Secrecy Act. And certainly in light of what's happened with BitMEX, recent news, thinking about all of that in conjunction is really important. So looking at this particular interpretive letter in light of what we're seeing from other agencies, it's, I think, an important reminder that all of the interplay of all of these different agencies is really the environment and ecosystem in which everyone is operating. And so I just encourage people to take this as very positive, but also recognize that there are a lot of other things that vector in that create. It's still a quite complicated and ambiguous regulatory environment overall when you kind of step up a level and look at that. But yeah, very positive and very excited to see that letter.
Yeah, no, I think, at the Blockchain Association, we share your sentiment, Sheila. It's definitely a positive step, but it is only a step, and there are, many other questions that remain, to get sort of a more wide stream adoption of this particular type of stablecoin. And, I think from our perspective, the Blockchain Association has always believed that we should have a marketplace of different stablecoins out there. Fiat-backed ones are, I think, a very important, really almost alternative to a central bank digital currency, or maybe something that works in conjunction with that. But that it's also very important to have these sort of protocol-backed, protocol-powered stablecoins and they all have different uses and work in different ways. But I do think in the OCC interpretive letter for some in the crypto community, the fact that there was this distinction between unhosted wallets and hosted wallets, and how that ties into the Bank Secrecy Act was a little bit alarming. And we don't like to call them unhosted wallets; we call them self-hosted wallets, because
right.
Sort of core aspects of cryptocurrency, which was in the very heading of the Bitcoin white paper, from what are we, 11 or 12 years now since that was issued, talks about the importance of having peer-to-peer transactions, and directly peer-to-peer transactions aren't done in hosted wallets; they're in these self-hosted wallets. So, but maybe Congressman Soto, is this conversation around hosted wallets something that has reached Capitol Hill yet? And is there a role for Congress to play when sort of looking at the Bank Secrecy Act and how it applies to cryptocurrencies?
Sure. First of all, we're talking about a letter which could blow away with the breeze. It's not a regulation. It's not a law. And as a little civics lesson, laws supersede regulations and regulations let letters blow away with the breeze. So it's a good step, but it is very precarious because any new appointee could come in and change it the next day. So yeah, it's guidance that is helpful. And the fact that they're acknowledging it, I think, is the biggest step. But that certain rules should apply and be of more significance because you're with a bank versus on your own. I think that vagueness needs to be clarified. But overall, this is kind of a baby step. What we need is actual laws that govern these things, empowering our agencies to then do the rulemaking. And then that's the orderly way of doing things, because then industry, consumers, everybody then gets to have some input on those rules through exhaustive rulemaking process. And then we get a set of regulations, and regulations in place, unless overturned by laws, are pretty stable because you have to do a whole rulemaking to even get rid of them afterwards. And that's how most of our financial structure is put together, is through the regulatory regime that's established through law. So I think that the other thing I find fascinating is this idea of having some of these cryptocurrencies be fiat-backed and avoiding sort of the inflationary issues that could come up, or the volatility that could come up, and bringing it back to Hispanic Heritage Month, which I know we were talking about earlier. When you look at a failed state like Venezuela, for instance, where you have hyperinflation, we've seen a history in certain South American countries where that has happened before, but the most recent is Venezuela. Having stable currencies that people can then utilize in the alternative gives economic freedom to citizens there that are facing a tyrant in Maduro, who has destroyed their economy. There's no freedom of press. There's no real freedom of economy. And so this allows for that extra freedom. And we could see that in other failed states across the world, that it helps with people's economic independence and for them to be able to continue when you have such a situation as that. And so this is going to be helpful to Central and South America, to the Caribbean, and other areas that sometimes have these issues going on.
Well, thank you both so much for your insights. I know we have another panel that's waiting to go, so I think we'll wrap up our conversation here. But really, thank you, Congressman Soto, Sheila Warren with World Economic Forum. Really appreciate your insights and your ability to talk about these issues in a way that's easy for newcomers to understand. I'd like to hand the conversation now over to Cleve Mesidor, who's going to lead a panel discussion with representatives from Circle and the Maker Foundation on how stablecoins will drive mainstream growth and adoption in the crypto economy. So enjoy the rest of the conversation.
Thank you, Kristin. I'm thrilled to continue the conversation about how stablecoins will drive mainstream growth and adoption in the crypto economy. I'm joined by industry leaders from Circle and Maker Foundation. Welcome, Nadia and Rachel. Now, you are both from Latin America. Nadia Alvarez is the Latin American lead for Maker Foundation. She develops alliances with organizations interested in integrating decentralized finance. Before joining Maker, she worked for some of the region's largest technology corporations. Now, Rachel Mayer is Vice President of Product Marketing at Circle. She actually focuses on providing payments and banking infrastructure for internet businesses through digital dollar stablecoins. Now, Rachel is a Venezuelan native. We heard the Congressman talk about Venezuela before. And interestingly, Nadia, you're based in Argentina, but you're speaking to us from Bogota, right? So I want, as you introduce yourselves, please share a bit more about what Hispanic Heritage Month means for each of you, but also to let our audience know, how did you get into blockchain and why are you at the companies that you are in? We'll start with Rachel.
Thank you for having me. So I immigrated from Venezuela to the United States in 2006. And shortly thereafter, my family also joined me in the States after as the congressman mentioned, a collapsing economy with struggling just to do business day by day and hyperinflation in a true dictatorship government. And so when I was very lucky to emigrate to this country, and I wanted to get a job to understand how a country can get so messed up politically and from an economic point of view. And so I took a job on Wall Street to be a interest rate currency trader, specifically for Latin American currencies, where Venezuela and Bolivar wasn't traded anymore. And around that time, that's when Bitcoin came on the scene. And as a technologist, as a currency trader, it was just the perfect marriage of both. And I immediately was brought to the actual pain points that my family personally and my friends still that live in Venezuela experienced, which is having a means of payments that is circumventing censorship, and also a store of value at the time that has anti-censorship properties. So I told all the traders at the desk, we need to start making markets in Bitcoin, but we were very too early stages at the time in the adoption cycle. So back then I knew I always wanted to be in crypto, and coincidentally Circle acquired a company that I founded years thereafter. And I have been in the crypto and now stablecoin industry ever since.
Wow, interesting pathway into the space. Nadia, share your story.
Yeah, well, I used to work, as you said, I used to work in big tech companies in Colombia and then in Argentina, where I have been living for the last 11 years. And well, Argentina also has a broken economy. And for the first time, I experienced inflation, because when I was living in Colombia, I didn't understood for real what was going to, what it's all about when you live in a country with inflation. And I experienced in my work that I was doing nothing to solve these kind of things. And that turned me crazy, because I wanted to do something, because that was affecting me, but not just me, but also all my friends and people who I know in Argentina. So I started looking for solutions for this problem that is the inflation and the lack of trust in your local currency, because that has bigger issues in the future, because you can have plans, you can think about buying a house or things like that. So in that search, actually, when I worked in these big tech companies, I used to work with the financial industry. So I had to think about doing projects to improve the financial industry. And on that time, the banks start to talk about blockchain, because they want to include blockchain, because that was the buzzword at that time. So I start my research on blockchain and what we can do with the banks, and well, all my ideas was like crazy for them. And then well, actually, this is interesting, because my first contact with the blockchain was with Ethereum, not Bitcoin. And I thought it was amazing that you can have digital money, but also you also have the power to create something with intelligence on top of that.
Wow.
And I start digging and going into the rabbit hole, and I found Maker, and I thought, oh my God, this is incredible, because it's the perfect solution for people in Argentina. And when I talked with a Maker team, and I told them that I wanted to help them in Argentina. And at that time, they were thinking about doing something in Latin America. And it was perfect, because they were looking for someone and I was looking for solutions. So it was the perfect moment, the perfect fit. And since then, almost 2.5 years, I have been working to show people that they have options here in Latin America. And I love it. I think it's amazing for people here, because usually you think that you don't have an option and you can have plans for your future. And it's amazing that with Maker and the stablecoins and all the crypto world that is emerging, you can show options to people.
Yes. Yeah. Oh my God, I love your story. Well, I love both of your stories. And that's the beauty of this space, right? Blockchain is a solutions-driven technology. And, you know, you both have approached it from the perspective of how do I solve problems? And so, but let's step back a bit, right? Let's not take for granted that the audience understands stablecoins, right? So, you know, why don't we, Rachel, please share a brief overview 101, what are stablecoins?
Definitely. A stablecoin is a new class of cryptocurrency that attempts to offer price stability and is usually backed by a reserve asset. Stablecoins really marry the best of both worlds meaning blockchain technology and traditional money and fiat. They marry from a blockchain technology perspective, the faster transaction times, the global nature of a cryptocurrency, irreversibility, and it marries the traditional aspects of fiat money, which is relatively stable and volatility free of traditional currencies. The different types of stable coins, they aim to achieve this price stability by two different methods. One is through direct backing or collateralization of those reserves, or through algorithmic mechanisms of buying and selling this reserve asset or its derivatives. And I think between Nadia and myself as representatives of both MakerDAO and Circle, you have DAI and USDC as really prime examples of these two different types of stablecoins. USDC, which was founded by Circle in conjunction with a joint venture with Coinbase through the Center Consortium, is the second largest and fastest growing regulated digital dollar stablecoin out there. And it is backed 1-to-1 with the US dollar and transparent in that we have monthly attestations that can be found by auditing and reserves.
Well, thank you. That was very in-depth, very detailed, and also simple for, I think, for our audience to follow. Now, Rachel mentioned DAI. So Nadia, tell us about what you've seen in terms of mainstream adoption in Latin America and the successes that you've had with DAI for Maker.
Well, it's a great question because I have mixed feelings about that. Because yes, we have like success in Latin America, especially in Argentina, but it's because the economical conditions of the country. I mean, it's because every time you heard about new capital controls, new restrictions, and people lack of options about, okay, what I'm going to do with Argentinian pesos. If I just keep it, I'm losing the value of my money. And because of that, we have success in Argentina and in Latin America in general. And that's why it's like I said, it's mixed feelings for me because it's amazing, but at the same time, it's because the country is like this financial mess where people don't know what to do to save the value of their money. So yeah, we started like 2 years ago telling people what a stable coin is, what DAI is, and it was kind of complicated because, I mean, USDC is a little bit more easy for people who is not into crypto because just if you hear the name USDC, you know, it's something about the dollar, but with DAI, we have to explain a little bit more. So right now, after all this work we have been doing, you can ask in LATAM, and we are known as the digital dollar, the decentralized digital dollar. And it has been like very cool experience because a lot of people who are using DAI is their first cryptocurrency. They don't know anything about Bitcoin. They don't know anything about any other crypto, and They don't know how crypto or blockchain works. They just know it's a decentralized digital dollar, and they like this decentralized part of it because in Argentina, in Venezuela, people knows that the government can froze your accounts, can like you are not the owner of your money, and people here understand that. So a decentralized currency makes sense for people here. So they think it's our value proposition like resonates with them. So that made easier my job here of showing people what DAI is. And we have amazing partners in the region, because we as the Maker Foundation, we are not a Latin America company. We just provide the back end that puts DAI on the market. And then we have all these partners in Latin America who creates solutions for people in specific countries. So that's amazing, because people don't have to understand what crypto is, don't have to have like a wallet, or understand why they have to take care of their private keys. That doesn't matter. They just know that they can buy DAI because it will help them to save them the value of their money, and also they will have access to the decentralized finance world, where they can invest their DAI and start earning interest. And that's amazing, because at the end they can turn those DAI into fiat. It could be dollars, even in most of the countries in Latin America. We have on-off ramps, not just for the local currency, but also for dollars. And that gives them security about DAI, because it's very interesting, the use cases we have here in the region, because these use cases are for regular people, not crypto people. So we are like seeing how DAI is turning itself in a currency.
Wow.
Like, it's not a cryptocurrency, it's a currency. And the other day I shared on my Twitter, there's an account, a Twitter account in Argentina, that is telling everyone the different value they can get for the dollar against the Argentinian pesos, because in Argentina we have different dollars depending on how can you get it, because of all of these restrictions. And one of the measures they have is the DAI dollar. So we are known as a new currency, like at this decentralized digital dollar for Latin America.
Wow. Well, it's wonderful the success that there's been with DAI and USDC. And Nadia, you make a good point, right? All of the successes are because the problem is so real and so deep. So, it would be great to have these strides and make these inroads if the situation wasn't so dire. But, it sounds like, Maker Foundation and Circle are committed to making this seamless for those who have been impacted. Now, let's shift the conversation a bit. I enjoyed the segment with Kristin and Congressman Soto and Sheila Warren. And, at the end, they talked a bit about, the new OCC guidance that says national banks can hold stablecoins. That is great news, and obviously the congressman wanted to temper that conversation. We do need to pass laws, but there are some short-term and long-term impacts here. So Rachel, let's start with you. I know your CEO has been talking a lot about this.
Yes, we are very excited at Circle with this guidance. And I think in the short term, immediately this clarity from the US Treasury Department around the standards for banks to hold reserve on behalf of stablecoin issuers, what it really means is that businesses of all sizes, but specifically fintech firms and banks, can have more confidence in building on this innovation of stablecoins, while also ensuring that the guardrails are there and the risk management practices, such as complying with the Bank Secrecy Act, are all expected from the traditional US banking system, can be applied at the same time. and marrying those two. So we at Circle, we are starting to see more of that galvanization around banks and fintechs really engaging with us for stablecoin projects and providers. We have launched a suite of platform services, including a Circle account and APIs aimed at these types of businesses. So fintechs and banks can integrate and use stablecoins within their products for their customers as well. So we are very excited about this news. We don't take it lightly, and we're aiming programs and resources to help banks and fintechs in supporting the use of digital dollars like USDC. And what does it actually mean? It means that they can have confidence to know that they have conversion infrastructure, those on and off ramps, so they can leverage the properties of digital dollars, that they have confidence around the custody and security and the infrastructure of providing wallet infrastructure to leverage these digital dollars. As an issuer of USDC, this guidance just validates the approach that we've been taking for the past 2 years of building a resilient, powerful, and open standard for the digital dollars on the internet.
Wonderful, wonderful. And one more step towards mainstream adoption. So Nadia, get in here. What are your thoughts?
Well, I love it because I think it's important because, you know, there's in this space, you can find a lot of maximalists that said, no, the bank, the traditional finance or blockchain. I don't think that's the way we have to look for. I think we have to find the intersection between both. And I think it's important for us on the blockchain space to learn the lessons that the traditional finance have learned in the past, and well, right now at the speed that this blockchain ecosystem is going on, we have been seeing a lot of new problems to solve and new solutions to give. So it's important to learn from the traditional finance and find these intersection points. And I think banks having stable coins or cryptocurrencies and offering the custodial service for it, that's a big step towards new companies, new fintech companies adopting crypto. So it will be like these two worlds joining in greater solutions for people. And one thing that I like the most about cryptocurrencies are that are global. So anyone in any country can have access not just to this currency, this cryptocurrency, but also to all the services that are around this currency, this cryptocurrency. So what I expect is to see more financial companies, fintech companies, banks offering not just like services for the country, but for the world. Because, well, right now, the money, I think it's like transforming itself into something that is global, not local, like information. Like a lot of people compares blockchain with the internet. Internet for the information and blockchain for the money. So I think it's important to find these intersections and develop new solutions.
Yeah, no, I love that, the way you talk about it in terms of intersections, and the fact that crypto is global and that has actually transformed and transcended the marketplace. And at the end of the day, the beauty of stablecoins, right? It is, the crypto community, the blockchain community, we've struggled to actually educate the public. And so stablecoins offers us an opportunity to actually, be intersectionary and actually connect with users. So the steps like what, the guidance from OCC and the inroads that, Congressman Soto has made in Congress have actually been very helpful. And both your companies being global, shows the reach and the power of crypto. Now, we did receive a few pre-submitted questions from our audience. So let's dive into our Q&A, right? So the first question is actually for you, Nadia. What is being done to educate and engage Latinx communities about stablecoins specifically?
Yes, that was like the big thing on my agenda when I started working for Maker. So we created a lot of content in Spanish and Portuguese because all content is in English. And we wanted this content and how-tos and explanations, videos to be in Spanish and Portuguese for all Latin American people. So we worked a lot on that. But then, like at the end of the second year, I had like a learning that it's easier to find partners to create good solutions with an easy UX and UI, so people don't have to learn that much about stablecoins or crypto or blockchain. So right now we are more focused on create these great solutions so anyone who doesn't have the time or don't want to learn something new but need stable coins or cryptocurrencies in their life can use it. So although we're just keep going on creating more content, and we have ambassadors in all the region who are creating communities and are like showing how to use DAI, what to do with DAI, how you can get DAI. And also we are like trying to have a larger community on the development side, so more products and solutions can integrate the Maker protocol inside. We're also finding these partners and helping them to create these great solutions with great UX. So the hardest part of blockchain and crypto are solved because these partners create these things. So we are doing that, and we are also very excited because next year we will have DevCon, one of the biggest events of the Ethereum community in Bogota.
Ooh.
So yeah, I know. So Ethereum, please, yes, it's a great opportunity to be around all these people that are thinking about creating new solutions on the Ethereum blockchain, but also to know the local community. So, well, that's one of the reasons that I'm here in Colombia right now. We are very focused on creating community in Colombia to teach people how to build solutions using Solidity, using all these amazing APIs that are around with Circle, for example, with Maker, and create new products that can give solutions to Colombians or Latin Americans. So that are our efforts right now in the region.
Wow, I love the passion that the both of you bring to this conversation. And Nadia, as you were saying, I thought of Sheila Warren earlier, as she mentioned that hopefully we'll get to a point where the technology will be secondary, right? People won't even think about blockchain. They'll just focus on the applications. And it sounds like, even though, you're doing the right things in terms of educating people in their language and also doing the outreach, you're also trying to make it seamless. You're trying to take down any barriers and really not focus on technology, but focus on solutions, which is wonderful. And it's, that's what you're doing at Circle as well, Rachel. Now, Rachel, your CEO, Jeremy Allaire, recently talked about Circle's mission and their values. Right, that's actually very important as we build a vibrant and inclusive crypto ecosystem. So tell us more about, the conversation that's being had about Circle's mission and values.
Yes, it's a timely time to talk about a company's mission as it relates to the blockchain space. So Circle's mission is to raise global economic prosperity through programmable internet commerce. And it was founded nearly 7 years ago with the belief that blockchain and digital currency will rewire the global economic system. And it fundamentally will create a more open, inclusive, efficient, and integrated world economy that, just weaves together all of the conversation that we've had in this past hour. But specifically, we have that mission, and more importantly, how does it affect our day-to-day in terms of our values? And first and primarily, we are multi-stakeholder. And so we value the stakeholders that are our employees, our customers, our shareholders, our families, our peer communities, and our local communities as well. Corporations don't exist in a vacuum, and we are social institutions, and we have obligations to meet our local communities where they are and to address global issues such as climate change, and we just cannot avoid those issues. And so that fact that we're local and global at the same time, by being one of the creators of USDC, it is inherently embedded in our mission and in our values. And we just want to know what we stand for, whether it's a regulator, a partner, or a new hire. And I'll make a plug, we are hiring, so go check us out at circle.com/careers.
That's wonderful. I'm sure many in our audience are wondering, how do they get into the crypto space? So you heard it, Circle is hiring. And I think it's so important, as you just talked about, Circle's audience, right? It's customers, it's employees, it's investors. The marketplace has changed so much, and we're at a critical time where the marketplace is being driven by 4 powerful generations, right? Boomers are still a big part of the marketplace. I'm a member of Gen X, and we are still a big part of the marketplace, but the majority of the global marketplace are millennials and Zoomers, and they're very, very value-centered in terms of, which businesses they patronize. So I think it's very timely, as you have this conversation about stablecoins at Circle, you talk about, the global approach to your values and your mission. Now, I would love that both of you to weigh in on this last question, right? We've seen a lot of growth in DeFi lately, right? And everywhere you turn, somebody is talking about DeFi, right? Do you think the growth is sustainable? Obviously, we're talking about stablecoins. We're excited about stablecoins, right? But, what have you seen in terms of this growth, over the last, few months or few weeks? And, where do you think we can go from here? We'll start with you, Rachel.
Yeah, a lot of the DeFi activity has fueled the growth of USDC in this year. It was a conjunction of DeFi and COVID and the shift to online payments. We're almost at 3 billion market cap and 500% growth, and that's largely due to DeFi. But I think we're still just at the beginning. Nadia knows this well. You really need a PhD in DeFi to really interact with it. I'm in crypto, and sometimes I miss 5 days. I'm like, oh, there's a new protocol, and I have to go and look and understand how it works. So the barrier to entry for even just a regular investor is still quite high. And in the future, we should absolutely expect that to change, right? So tomorrow's DeFi market should really allow anyone to have global access to decentralized finance through global marketplaces and to provide, traditional financial services that someone understands in their local economy. For example, I foresee a world where a woman running a market in Kenya will be able to borrow funds through decentralized protocols at competitive rates, just using her smartphone. We're not there yet, so we're just at the beginning. And so I'm very optimistic that the growth will continue.
Wonderful, wonderful. Nadia, weigh in here, because certainly, DAI has been a beneficiary of the interest and the growth as well.
Yeah, and I agree with Rachel. I think it's just the beginning. If you think about it, it has been this year that of the explosion of all of these DeFi projects, and I think it's great because it had created a lot of attention to stablecoins, to DeFi, and the capacity that any developer in the world can create a financial product and have access to this decentralized economy. So I think it's great. Regarding the yearns we are seeing, the returns we are seeing, I think it's crazy. I mean, I don't think that it continues in that way. I think it will find like a more neutral point, but I do think that it could be higher than the traditional finance, because inside blockchain you are like creating smart contracts and all these mechanisms that help you to optimize the cost, and that means more returns for the users. So I think that's, and going back to the previous question, that is something that the companies from the for the traditional finance can start looking at these DeFi protocols and integrate those services and offer new and more exciting services to their users. So that's what I expect in the following months and years, more intersections of the DeFi world and the traditional financial sector that create new projects and better services for us. And it won't matter if you are in Argentina or the States, or if you travel around the world, you will have access to those services. It doesn't matter if you have like a bank account or not. With a cell phone, you will have access to that, and that's cool. I'm looking for that moment.
Well, it's definitely exciting, and you're right. You know, all of the excitement has definitely galvanized people around, you know, DeFi and forced people to learn more. And so that will definitely add to the growth. So as we close, I would love to, know if do either of you have any final remarks, any advice for our audience? Nadia, we'll go with you first.
Yeah, well, I love this panel because usually the fintech world, the blockchain world, the crypto world is full of men. So it's nice to have a female panel. And I'm here in Latin America, and one of my passions is to see everyone using cryptocurrencies in their lives, but also I want more women to start learning not just about cryptocurrencies, but about how to manage their economy, their personal financials. So I would love to see more communities around that, like helping more women to start learning how to save their money, how to invest their money. I'm participating in a DAO of women of the space, of the crypto space, and we all have this thing in our minds. Something about working on the crypto world is that everyone has like a lot of passion for what they do. So with this group of women, the DAO is called Meta Gamma Delta DAO. We created a fund where we want to give grants to projects led by women that has something to do with blockchain or cryptocurrencies, and that the objective of the projects is like minorities. So yes, we're open to anyone who has an idea, but also I would like to see more people like helping women and more people using cryptocurrencies. So I'm always open to help anyone who wants to start using cryptocurrencies, start understanding all this crypto world. So you can write me on my email, nadia@makerdao.com, or find me on Twitter. I'm always open to help anyone who can start with this thing called crypto.
Wonderful. Well, thank you. You know, Nadia, I love to talk about more women in tech, more women in crypto. I lead a network of women of color in blockchain, and globally, you know, as the both of you have spoken about, you know, stable coins and how, you know, they help to solve problems. We know that women globally are thinking through how to solve problems for their families, their communities. And so great. And, you know, Rachel, how are you going to follow that one?
I can't. I will just close with I echo the sentiment. This is an amazing panel of, you know, smart, powerful Latina women representing crypto, and I just never been more excited to work in finance and in crypto at this very moment. So thank you for all of your contributions.
No, thank you for the work that the two of you are doing. You know, your companies, Maker Foundation and Circle, are, you know, growing, but also it sounds like you're doing it very responsibly and actually caring about education and engagement. And that is how we're going to change the global economy. So thank you, you know, Nadia and Rachel. And, you know, as I close, I want to thank the Blockchain Association for convening this important conversation, and also commend the team at Blockchain Association for the progress they've made over the last 2 years. I'm grateful to Congressman Darren Soto for joining us, but also for the great work he is doing in Congress. He's a true champion of blockchain in Congress. And oh my God, our speakers, incredible industry leaders. World Economic Forum's Sheila Warren, I'm a big fan, so it was great to have her on. And definitely, you know, Nadia Alvarez, Rachel Mayer, thank you. And, you know, Kristin Smith, who's the executive director of Blockchain Association. You know, great to work with you on this. And so I'll close by wishing everyone a happy Hispanic Heritage Month.